In this video we are gonna see how we can make an API call to fetch data. So before doing that, let's talk about what is an API. So this mobile application is basically referred as a client or front end, and even websites are nothing but client or front end, right? So basically anything which an end user is not directly going to access is generally referred as client or front end. Now the data is stored in a database. There are different types of databases, but yeah, let's not discuss that. So the data is usually stored in the database, and any organization, when they make their apps, right, whether it's a mobile app or a website, basically the client, right, the client they'll be providing. So this app is basically a client, right? When they provide client to the end user, what happens is that they don't want to expose all the data of the database, so they don't directly give access to client to access the database. Instead, there sits a layer called as backend. Backend is a very broad term, but for the sake of simplicity, let's just call that between client and the database there sits something called as backend. And that backend is nothing but again some code. Now what happens, those backend has functions, right? Normal function. So the function example of the function can be get all online restaurants, get all online delivery partners, and bunch of things. And these functions have the access to get data from database. Now what happens, these functions are exposed to the client through APIs. So now client will call these functions running on backend through APIs, and these functions in turn can run bunch of checks whether the client is genuine or not, whether the data which they have accessed, should they be getting that data or they don't have the authorization for that. If they have, then the function will get the data from database and then will send it back to client through APIs. If the user is not genuine or the authorization is not correct of the client, then backend will return some error through the API back to the client. So this is overall how it works. In the next video, we'll see how to actually implement the same on our code.